All right, this is Bootstrapped Web, episode number 44. This is the podcast for you, the founder who learns by doing as you bootstrap your business online. And we've got a great show for you today. Today we are talking about productized services, a hot topic, seems to be cropping up everywhere you look and everywhere you talk to people. And a little later on, you'll also hear Brian's interview with Nick DiSabato, the founder of Draft Revise, I think one of the more well-known productized services, at least that's been highlighted by a few people. But before we get into the show, let's do a quick update. Brian, what has been going on over the past week or two?
Yeah, Jordan, good to be back. We're kind of recording this one last minute. It was supposed to publish today, but here we are, end of Thursday.
Totally my fault.
Well, I mean, mine too. I've been pretty behind, just again in crunch time producing this course, productized. And today, the stuff that we'll be talking about are basically concepts pulled straight from the course, things that I've been researching and writing and teaching as I'm producing this course. So you kind of get a sneak peek of some of the ideas, kind of a high-level overview, and then a little later, my interview with Nick DiSabato, founder of Draft Revise, one of the more well-known and really well-run productized services, productized consulting businesses out there. So it was a great conversation talking to him, and that's actually one of the case studies that is included in the course. And by the way, for those of you on my newsletter, you already know this, but the course is launching October 21st. That's Tuesday morning, a couple days from now. And yeah, it'll be kind of a special going on through the month of October. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, let us know. But Jordan, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to share with people on the show, right before you launch, during your launch, and then after your launch, looking back. I think it'll be really interesting, not only for us to look at and talk about, but also for other people to kind of listen in and see how that goes and why things work and why things didn't work. So it'll be a great kind of case study in real time.
Yeah, I do have a lot to share about this particular launch. I feel like it's been more hectic and more, I don't know, like complex than other launches. Like I'm just doing so much more this time around. And it kind of, at the same time, it makes me a little nervous because I always had that feeling, a couple days before it opens that like, it's not going to live up to expectations and putting in a lot of work for nothing. You know how the entrepreneurial.
Yep, only human. You wouldn't be normal if if it was 100% optimism throughout the entire time. But I think you're onto something good, and I think it's going to be really interesting to look at the split between the work you're doing for the course and the work you're doing for the marketing and promotion of it, and how at first they are closer to even 50-50, and then as you create an online and digital product, you can start to focus more and more heavily on the marketing and promotion side of things, and how that's just a much better lever to push on than trying to do both at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that factors into this, and the same thing happened when I released my book last year, was trying to market it and trying to build up to the launch and build that anticipation and everything. And then, when people started to buy it, the book last year, I had this other feeling like, oh, crap, now people are going to actually read this thing. And I kind of had that same feeling with this course. So I'm really just trying to make it as useful and really actionable as possible. And I think it does that. I think it does cover a lot of ground. It probably way more beyond just productized services, but it actually gets into like automation and systemizing, and then market. There's a whole slew of lessons around marketing. So I want to make it really useful, and so that's just on my mind as well. Taking a lot out of me these last few days as we lead up to the launch.
I'm sure, but if there's anyone that's the right person to teach this, it's someone who's gone through the trenches and come out the other side with a productized service business that's up and running and mostly automated and acquiring customers and growing. Okay, so let's get my little update out of the way. I am not the focus of today's episode. and I don't mind that because my brain is exhausted and not at 100% capacity. So for me, right on the personal front, man, I'm tired. This is one of the real difficulties of bootstrapping a business as a husband and father. Uh, 3 weeks ago, I had my brother-in-law's wedding up in Seattle, not even Seattle, 2.5 hours east of Seattle. So from Portland, Oregon, that's a big trip. It's 5 days. It's driving. It's family.
Yeah, you've been traveling everywhere.
Right. The week after that, my wife goes away to visit friends, which is great. Take a little break from the 6-month-old and go breathe a little bit, which is good. It also means I'm dad. So for those 5 days, you don't really get much work done. Then this past weekend, I went to a wedding in Martha's Vineyard. From Portland, Oregon to Martha's Vineyard, you cannot get a more difficult, annoying, multifaceted airplane, planes, trains, and automobiles type of situation. I had a great time. But over the past 3 weeks, all that, you really don't make progress, right? I basically just tried to keep things running and keep things moving forward and not lose customers and make sure free trials are converting and people are launching their campaigns, but there's very little progress. And so it becomes stressful and physically and mentally just exhausting because you just want to move forward and you can't. So that has been a real struggle, but I'm back. I'm back home, back in the office, and very, very excited to kind of go back to a normal schedule. Just a few 5-day work weeks in a row is really all I need.
Yeah, it's so funny that how like we crave those like solid work days. Actually just today, my wife is actually she's been so great. She's actually taking off work today. She called in sick just so that I can get an extra day in the office, and to get these videos edited and everything and ready for the course.
Yeah, it's a full contact sport, and with a spouse and kids, you're the tip of the spear, but you have a support team. You're standing on the shoulders of people that help you out. It's just part of the deal. On the business front, I'm just trying to move things forward with CardHook. I have more free trials going than I ever have right now, so super exciting. We'll have our biggest month. Next month, once people start to convert, we'll have the biggest revenue month. I'm still growing at a good 20-25% every month.
Very nice.
So really excited.
So you've got systems running. So even when you are going out with your family and traveling and everything, it is a recurring revenue business. It's going.
It is, and I've made a few switches in policy. I used to email people their results for the month and then wait for their confirmation before I charge their card. And now I switched that policy and I basically said, look, I'm going to send you the same email. If I don't hear back from you, I'm assuming it's all good, and I'll charge your card 3 business days after that email gets sent. So I finally had that very, very happy feeling that every online entrepreneur wants, where I just went and took all of my customers and just charged all of them at once. So I finally got bang, the whole revenue for the month all at one time, which was a great feeling.
Nice.
And now I'm not chasing, that accounts payable piece of it starts to disappear, and it becomes more and more closely resembling, the standard SaaS at the beginning of the month. You charge your customers. So that's good. The difficulty I'm having, I'm looking for development help for CardHook, and I'm having trouble. It is hard. My co-founder is a developer, and he's focusing on the really important features, but I need more integrations. I'm looking for JavaScript developers. I'm looking on Odesk, and I am having trouble. I reached out to a service called ZipTask, ziptask.com. I'm pretty sure I heard a commercial for it on Stitcher. And this service allows you to hire a project manager, and they go out and deal with Odesk or whoever they go out to find, and you're just dealing with that one person, and they have a layer of expertise, and they're a developer also. So that has not gone perfectly, but I am still hopeful that is something that can work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you're a non-developer, but I wonder how bringing in a firm or an outside project manager like that might kind of add a layer of complication when it comes to your partner, who is the developer, having him kind of collaborate with the other developers
It's
merging
really
the code and all that.
Yeah, it's really tricky because we have some code that I just would not let anybody touch besides him. Like our worker script, all these things that run the actual service. It would just be crazy to let somebody just start fiddling with it. But so you have to figure out where that line is. Like, okay, I want my onboarding improved. So on the back end in the admin panel, is that okay for people to touch? And so it's definitely something that needs to be figured out over the next few weeks. But there's no choice. It has to be. It has to be figured out.
Totally.
Yeah, I look forward to keeping you updated on that, and and launching some new features and.
We should do a whole episode on hiring developers and working with developers.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not just for someone in my situation that's a non-developer.
Oh no, I struggle with it all the time as well. I mean, I'm not a super developer or anything like that, but
even for a developer, I always think of Ruben Gomez in BidSketch and how he forced himself to rely on other people for development, which I think is a really smart way to go, and it's a real challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
So enough about us. What I want to hear about, Brian is working on a course on productizing a service. This is something that comes up all the time because anybody running a service-based business knows it's really difficult, and having a productized service is extremely appealing for a whole bunch of reasons. I just joined a consulting mastermind that I spoke to this morning, and productized services and how to productize and how to position it and price something that's more productized as opposed to open-ended is really the goal. And so I'm really excited. We have the man himself, the real source of this, someone who built a productized service. So Brian, why don't you take it away from here and talk to us about what we're talking about today to orient people, and then let's get into it.
Yeah. So as we keep talking about, it's all about productized services, right? So I mean, what are kind of some of the common scenarios where productizing might come into the picture? Depending on where you're at in your business or in your whole journey, through bootstrapping or doing your own thing, right? So you get a lot of freelancers and consultants who are moving out of working project to project or billing by the hour, just taking on different clients and doing all sorts of different types of jobs and things like that. They want to kind of, their big challenge, and this is through talking to everyone in my audience and then also just looking back on my experience when I was a freelance web designer, their work and their income is tied way too closely to their time. It's that feast and famine cycle, right? So that's kind of the big driver that drives this group towards looking at a productized model, to make that sort of change in their business. The other things that kind of really start eating away is just like writing those long proposals, doing the negotiation, the discovery meetings, going back and forth with clients, scoping out projects. It can just kind of become a grind after a while. And the other thing that I hear a lot is clients don't value your work. So like you attract clients and all they really care about is getting something done cheaply, or they don't really understand the value of your expertise or the benefit of your actual service. So those are things that kind of drive freelancers and consultants into productizing. Another scenario here is launching a new product. So if you're not ready to invest the time and money into building something like a big SaaS application or an iPhone app or something like that, you need to launch to paying customers quickly. And I did a bunch of these case study interviews as part of the research for this course. And one thing that just kept coming up again and again, and you'll hear it in this interview with Nick DeSabato today, you can launch a productized service like that, within a week. I mean, I spoke to Jared Drysdale. He launched a landing page in a day. Like, I think he had the idea on Friday, put up his landing page on Saturday, and started posting it online and had a few paying customers by Monday or Tuesday.
So why do you think that is? What's the difference? Obviously, building software is going to take a long time, but what is it about a productized service that allows you to launch so quickly, right? I have my ideas on it, but what'd you find?
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept is that you're doing the work. It's a done for you service. You're not necessarily relying on software that may not exist yet. Um, and also you're doing something that you've already been doing, just in a different model. So you're drawing on some kind of expertise and some kind of experience. Um, I mean, there are just so many examples of this. I mean, I've been speaking to a lot of like web designers who launch kind of these type of related services, but there's another site, Broaders, right? They just handle your credit card points. So they'll help you track your credit card bonus miles and help you get like free flights and free upgrades and everything for a set price. And like they just manually track it for you and then send you reminders. And so these types of services can be launched. Just throw up the landing page and kind of get it out there.
Yeah, I think for me one of the big things that makes it attractive is that we keep saying the term productized services, but if we listen to the first word there, productized, you're really writing a product description, and it's defined.
Yes.
So if you're a developer or designer, whatever it is, if you're a web professional and you say these are the services I offer, SEO, PPC, web design, WordPress, CMS, e-commerce sites, it's undefined, and the person looking at it has to find, does this person work? Is this the type of thing that I need? Whereas, I equate it to a product page on one of my e-commerce sites that I used to have. You get there, you read it. If it's right for you, you consider buying it. If it's not right for you based on what's on the page, you understand this isn't for me. So to come across a landing page that says, I will build your landing page, I'll give you 2 revisions, and it'll include X, Y, and Z, the person can kind of make a decision, and the person writing, right, the person who wants to offer the service, you know what you need to write on the page and just put out the points that need to be there.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. I mean, really, what a productized service is like it's a service, but you're positioning it as a product. You're selling it as a product with a set scope and a set price, and these are like non-negotiable terms. I mean, yeah, you can build in some sort of flexibility and that sort of thing, but essentially you're offering one value proposition, and that's based on a number of factors, but mainly you're solving a problem, and you're solving a problem that, based on your experience, whether you're coming from a freelancing background or maybe working at a job, you've seen firsthand that people are willing to pay for this problem to be solved. And that's just a really important aspect. And then you just design your scope of work to be the most optimal solution to that problem.
Right, and from experience about how long it's going to take you, and about how much money you need in order for it to make sense and to be a viable business. So yeah, all these defined parameters just help focus the person making the offering as well as the person considering it as purchasing. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the perspective of the customer. Is it's a set scope and price, and it offers its value proposition. But from your perspective as the founder, it has the potential to run systematically, and it can be scaled up using systems and processes, so that essentially you can get to the goal of a productized service business that can produce and grow without you. You can go on vacation and you're still getting customers in the door, and those customers are still being served, whether it's by your team or automation, or a combination of the two, and streamlining. You're removed from the process, so it just continues. You're basically building it into a sellable asset, essentially.
Right, and I think that might be the single most attractive piece of this. Yes, it makes it more clearly defined, and it might make it easier to sell and all that, but a business that you do everything in is not really a business. It's you hiring yourself out by the hour, one way or another, even if it's productized. But what makes this so attractive is that it's repeatable, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more results you bring, the more results you can show, and the easier it becomes, the more systemized and documented you can make it. So I think that's really just the most attractive thing. compared to I will build your website, that's really, really hard to make repeatable unless you focus on it exclusively and get really good at it. But these other types of services, I think you can build it in a repeatable way, and that's a real business that you can start to step away from as you build the systems and documentation, and make sure you build in enough margin there to continue making a profit. You can hire more people and get more clients and start to step away, and that's a business, something that operates without you. That's the goal. That's what we can call a real business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so let's kind of go through a couple of different types.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Of productized services, because I've been doing a lot of these interviews, and you see this stuff again and again. You start to see the same patterns. And what I found is that for the most part, most of these productized businesses fall into two main categories, and then there's kind of a third one that is actually kind of a new development in more recent years. So the first two, the big two, are basically productized consulting. And this is basically a solo founder who wants to stay solo but gain focus in their work. So productizing is not necessarily all about scaling up and growing a team and becoming a manager, and it can certainly run as a solo operation. I mean, Nick DeSabato, as you'll hear today, is a prime example of this with his service, Draft Revise, where he basically he does conversion rate optimization, A/B tests, one A/B test per month. He'll run the test, he'll implement the successful result, he'll give you the report, and he'll recommend what's the next thing we should test. He kind of focuses on that because that's what he's really good at, that's what he enjoys doing, and he doesn't necessarily intend to grow his team and grow beyond himself. He kind of has this comfortable recurring revenue business that works really well for him. So that's kind of that's the productized consulting piece. The other version of this is productized service businesses, which are designed to scale and grow. Dan Norris, co-founder of WP Curve, great example of this. And again, they're another example who just he just launched this site really, really fast. He wrote a whole book called The 7-Day Startup about how he launched WP Curve to 10 paying customers in 7 days, and today they have many multiples beyond that. They're just growing like crazy, and his team, I think he's got like 20 or 30 employees at this point, all built on systems, all manual processes. They're doing live customer support for WordPress site owners. And it's just truly impressive. Like, they would not be able to scale without those kind of systems in place. And so I talk to him all about that. My business, Restaurant Engine, is also very much designed to scale up and kind of run on autopilot. And then there's this third trend that I'm starting to see, and this is really interesting. And it's kind of like a software productized service hybrid model, right? So using software helps to streamline the productized service component. So maybe you started with a software product and you're kind of struggling to gain traction, and you add in a productized service component to that to help attract customers and add more value. It's a really great way to kind of like supercharge the growth of a young software product, or to use an existing software product, or maybe one that you've developed, and use that as like the basis for a new productized service. So two examples come to mind.
I love that one.
Yeah. So I mean, again, my story with Restaurant Engine, in the very beginning, I never intended it really to be a productized service. I wanted to build a SaaS. I wanted to build a hosted web design service. And what I learned over the first year or two was that our clients really wanted us to do all the work for them, and they really value that, and that's what actually attracted them and got them to sign up. So we just kept doing that more and more, and it got to the point where we did it for every client, and now we actually require every client to have us set up their site. And so then we've kind of embraced that and really took the manual approach on everything, and then just focused on the systems. So that was kind of my story over the last 3 years. But then I spoke to Jared Drysdale. So this is really interesting. He launched a software product called Cascade about a year ago, and basically it's like it's like a design framework, CSS framework kind of thing.
Yeah, it's nice.
Helps you like really quickly design and build semi-custom landing pages. Um, and that's like a standalone product, and it offers some value. But then he launched landing page in a day, and you ask, how are you actually able to design and write a whole landing page in a day? The way he does it is he uses his software product to do it. He built this framework that's designed to do that really, really quickly, so his software allows him to streamline the manual piece.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, as a non-developer, I've had a bunch of ideas that kind of use this same framework. Yeah, landing page. I mean, Jared, right? What Jared's doing is he's using his own framework, his own product. As a non-developer, I don't even think you need to do anything like that. If you just want to add a layer of value, which is most likely your expertise, on top of a software product that exists, the first thing that comes to mind is lead pages. This thing has blown up in popularity, right? So if you take yourself and use a lead pages landing page and offer a productized service that says, I will build landing pages for you using lead pages. I'm pretty sure there's a consultancy. I think they do like a manual design. But still, I will build and manage and optimize your lead pages, landing pages, for a set price.
Yeah.
There are a ton of business people that want to use lead pages, and it's fantastic. I use it, but it's not that easy. Good luck setting up a webinar with Aweber and GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar with a lead pages landing page as a right? I live on the web. I have a freaking software company. It was not easy for me to do. I guarantee you there are people that want to do it, and if you can do it for them, all you're doing is you're leveraging an existing popular platform, and you're adding on a layer, and that's the service component, but you can offer it as a standardized offering.
That's
and
exactly.
There you go. That's that hybrid.
Exactly, and I'm seeing a lot of this actually. And we see it again and again. A lot of people are emailing me their ideas about like how they're productizing their services. You see it a lot with like analytics tools and also conversion rate optimization.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what Nick DeSabato does. I think he uses Optimizely. Another guy showed me this, Chris Vanoy. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He just launched, or he's kind of in the process of launching his new productized service called Brass Tacks. Basically, so the headline here, it says, what are your analytics actually trying to tell you? And we'll link this up in the show notes. It's a really good value proposition here. Basically, he just monitors your Google Analytics for you.
Right.
Or not only monitors it, but sets it up to track your key metrics and to kind of like, he'll actually like consult with you first and then figure out like what are those 5 or 10 key metrics that you need to track in your business, and then how can we actually like set up a custom dashboard in your analytics to get that data out, and then he documents everything so that you have it, and
it's just
really great service.
Yeah, it's adding a layer of value, and then standardizing it and being able to offer it to more people. People have been doing this forever with PPC. Right? I'll manage your Google AdWords for 15% of your spend. Right? It's pretty similar, right? It's it's a service, but if you're going to standardize it. Now, there's something like that. Each customer is different. Each keyword's different. All that, right? There's a certain amount of flexibility, but if you minimize that flexibility and have the procedure from marketing to engagement to the process and then launch and after the sale, if you can standardize as much of that as possible, then you have something that's repeatable and you get good at it and you can bring more results. Yes, that's really interesting. So you spoke to a few different types, right? Nick DeSabato, essentially productized consulting. He's leaning on some software, but it's really his expertise that people are hiring. And then the WP curve is just ridiculous. The fact that works, that everyone's just like, it's all manual, it's all developers, all spread around, but you standardized it. That is just an awesome case study to look at.
Yeah, it really is, and it's simple, right? It's not. all it is helping you with your WordPress site, like installing a plugin, installing a theme, minor tasks, or even just answering questions. Like just having someone on live chat, like that pretty much didn't exist before, unless you're paying your freelance web designer by the hour, which costs way more.
Right, and there's a big market for it. So
exactly.
Awesome. So what's next, right? So we've looked at a few different types. What's the next piece?
Yeah, well, I'll just kind of touch on this real briefly, because I know we want to get right into this interview with Nick. But basically, what is the first step? Let's make this a little bit actionable, right? How can you actually get started with productizing? And I think it comes down to one key thing, and that's really just you have to focus. You have to really become way more focused than you've been before as a freelancer, doing everything, taking on any type of project, any client. You need to focus on one service and focus on one customer. So by focusing on one service, what I mean here, and I mentioned this earlier, is ideally you want to find something that customers have paid you to do as a freelancer or at your job, and that indicates that there's a real pain or problem to be solved. In my email course, I have like a whole process for how to kind of narrow down and pick that service. And then the other thing that you want to look for is something that can produce real results and compelling case studies. So conversion rate optimization is a great one. Quantifiable. You're saying like every month we help you increase conversions 20%. And you can point to those kind of case studies. And then the other piece of this, and this is really important for almost anything, but especially with productized service businesses, is you got to focus on one customer. Number one, most of the services that I look at are B2B. Working with businesses. I haven't really seen much that really work with consumers, but B2B, but then niche verticals can be easier to reach. I've been seeing that with Restaurant Engine, obviously. But you do want to kind of choose the right audience for you. Who can you write content for? Will you attend their conferences and that kind of stuff? But yeah, like just focusing in on one customer and really understanding and knowing everything about them makes it much easier to tailor your marketing and your messaging and your value proposition, and defining the scope and your landing page. All of that becomes so much easier when you're just speaking to one customer and you know who that is, compared to when you're a freelancer, you're just kind of working with everyone. So every time that you're talking to a new customer or your potential new client, you kind of have to like redefine your whole value proposition and reinvent it every single time.
Yeah, this part's tricky. I mean, I know, right? I used to offer a few different services in the consulting business, and then I narrowed it down, and then I productized it. But even now, as I'm about to make another push for the consulting service for building a sales funnel for people, I know I need to niche, but it's really hard to clearly define, because in my mind, anybody that spends money, a decent amount of money, on getting people to their site, ideally with paid advertising, and then doesn't do lead generation, right? They either send it to the homepage or they're sending them to a contact form. That to me is a potential prospect, but that's way too wide. Right?
Yeah,
Big.
I don't think that it necessarily has to be like a niche industry vertical.
Right, it can be like a niche situation, or right?
Yeah, you can look at for CartHook, you work with e-commerce stores. You don't only work with pet food e-commerce stores. You
right.
work with anyone who's doing e-commerce, basically, or on that platform.
Right.
Or you can look at local service businesses, and then other qualifiers are like local service businesses who do 100K in revenue a month or something like that.
Right. So the more you can focus, the better, right? If I was building sales funnels only for coaches, for business coaches, I would have an easier time. And if don't have the confidence to do that because I don't want to niche down because I don't quite know yet who gets the most value, then I guess you at least have to niche down to the type of person, the type of business, and maybe geography, number of employees, number of locations, any of these parameters that you can use to niche. My favorite one is to make sure that they're spending money on advertising, because those are the companies that are trying actively to grow, and if you can improve their results in any way, so that's my favorite quality.
Exactly. I mean, just look at the Yellow Pages. If they're wasting money on advertising in the Yellow Pages, that's a great opportunity because number one, they're obviously spending money, and number two, that money is not being spent very wisely. So you can surely improve their results.
So you've got to pick a service, and you've got to pick a niche, whatever that means to you. The narrower you can get, the better for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should kind of leave it here. There is so much more that I actually wanted to cover, but I don't want to take away. We've waited long enough now to talk to Nick, so let's kind of hop into that. There is so much more about systemizing and scaling it up and then marketing it, but that'll have to be on another day.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I'm really looking forward to your conversation with Nick, and we're talking about this, but I know if I were on the listening end of this, I would want to know where I can get more of this information from you. So if somebody wants to dig deeper into this, where should they go, Brian?
Sure. So I have there's a free crash course on productizing your service. That's available on my homepage, castjam.com. And then the course, it is opening on Tuesday. That's at castjam.com/productize.
Excellent. So if you're looking for information on productizing your service, this is the man to get it from. So at this point, let's jump into your conversation with Nick. Brian, great talking to you, my man.
All right, Jordan. Yeah, next week.
All right. Cheers, everyone.